On this episode of China Uncensored, China tells South Korea to stop dancing. Hi, welcome to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. Did you ever see The Sound of Music? More like the sound of propaganda. Here I am thinking I'm watching a nice musical celebrating Austrian culture, when suddenly it turns into a story about Nazi oppression. Now clearly, the Third Reich is not one of their favorite things. But I mean, how dare they use art to make people think? Now speaking of artistic performances that make people think, Shenyun. It's a classical Chinese dance show run by a non-profit Chinese-American company. Apparently, the Chinese Communist Party considers Shenyun a major threat, including in South Korea. Why is that? Well, let's see. According to the Shenyun website, it's reviving 5,000 years of civilization. It features the world's foremost classically trained dancers, and it was established by Falun Dafa practitioners in 2006. I feel like it's probably one of those three. And if you want some background on why the Communist Party is so intent on stopping Falun Dafa, aka Falun Gong, watch this video here. Now, Shenyun tours around the world in hundreds of cities. I've watched it a few times at Linconcen터 in New York. Each show has about 20 dance and music numbers. Some of them depict historical things, like the founding of a dynasty. And a couple of them usually depict contemporary issues like Falun Dafa meditators standing up to the Communist Party's suppression. Well, apparently in South Korea, the use of the arts to make people think about certain contemporary issues is a huge threat to the stability of the Chinese Communist Party. You see, Kbs홀 in Seoul had signed a contract with promotion company New Cosmos Media to host Shenyun performances here in May 2016. But then, on January 26th, just a few weeks ago, KBS suddenly canceled the contract. Organizers suspect the Chinese embassy was behind it. Now, I know that sounds like wild speculation, but there are numerous well-documented cases of Chinese embassies around the world trying to stop Shenyun. Let's call it diplomacy with Chinese characteristics. They often tell theaters that hosting Shenyun may compromise relations between China and their country. For example, according to Spain's biggest newspaper, in 2014, a Chinese diplomat tried to pressure a theater in Barcelona to cancel its contract with Shenyun. When the theater refused, the Chinese official tried to pressure Spain's foreign ministry instead. Shenyun performed anyway, and it got rave reviews from Spanish media. And when Shenyun was scheduled to perform in Berlin that same year, the German Chinese embassy's cultural attaché met with the theater marketing and sales manager, Jörg Seefeld, telling him he had better cancel Shenyun. This German newspaper reported on the incident, saying it sounds like something out of the Cold War. Fortunately for Shenyun, Mr. Seefeld had been a prisoner during the Cold War in communist East Germany. He told the Chinese attaché to go pound sand. And those are two of literally dozens of examples around the world of Chinese diplomats diplomatically trying to force theaters to cancel Shenyun. And most of the time, their efforts have failed because theater managers stand up to them. So when getting theaters to cancel on Shenyun doesn't work, they sometimes try a different approach, like trying to stop people from attending.
Last week, Seattle City Council members received a letter from the Chinese consul in San Francisco urging them not to promote or attend the show.
Or the year before.
The Chinese government's been told to butt out of local politics after apparently asking Auckland councillors to stay away from a dance show.
Kathy Casey says a Consul General's letter is a breach of human rights.
China has its own laws. This is New Zealand. We're a democracy. We have freedom of expression and freedom of association, and this breaks every rule in the book.
You know, I feel like there are more important things that Chinese embassies could be doing. But anyway, back to Korea. Shenyun has tried to perform here every year since 2008, and almost every time, whether in Seoul, Busan, or another city, the theaters have told organizers they received pressure from Chinese officials not to hold the show. In some cases, theater owners have withstood the pressure and let Shenyun perform. But in many cases, the Korean theaters folded under pressure like it's their first time at the poker table, claiming, hey, it's not our fault, the Chinese embassy pressured us. But let's not completely blame the victim. I should point out that Chinese pressure on Korea has been unusually severe. You see, South Korea has a very tight relationship with China. China is South Korea's largest trading partner, a relationship worth more than $200 billion a year. And Chinese money is critical to Korea's economic development. And that may be why Kbs홀 broke Shunyun's contract and canceled this year's show. Also, Kbs홀 is owned by state-run Korean TV broadcaster KBS. And KBS has lots of reporters in China. Reporters who need Chinese media visas. And speaking of media, guess who shares a building with KBS in Seoul? Why, the local bureau of China Central Television. But you know, I don't want to make wild accusations about what's behind Kbs홀's cancellation of Shunyun. So I attempted to contact KBS for their side of the story. I sent a letter to their official email account, but it was returned because of an error in the mail server. I called several numbers for the relevant departments, but they all said something like this.
We are sorry. The number you have dialed is temporarily not in service.
Then we called their main phone number and asked to be transferred, but the representative refused. She insisted we send an email instead. I did speak about the issue with Chansik Lee, who's promoting Shunyun in South Korea.
Shunyun has been performing in Korea for the last 9 years, and 10,000 people every year have watched the Shunyun, and all of their response was fantastic. They all liked the show very much.
And have you talked to anyone at KBS since the cancellation of the contract? What has there been response?
Yeah, we met some people, and actually they all know that the show has no problem and the show is very famous worldwide.
So why cancel?
They have no choice. They just got order from the higher level.
Did they say who the higher level was or why?
They cannot tell that.
Mr. Lee also gave me a copy of KBS's official termination notice for Shunyun. KBS wrote that there is concern that it may damage our public corporation's image. Well, that same concern didn't seem to apply for this show, which I saw rehearsing at Kbs홀. The Korean Overseas Chinese Friendship Association Lantern Festival Gala. And it's sponsored by, you guessed it, the Chinese government. It's performing this week. Oh, according to the program, it features such traditional Chinese classics as I'm So Sexy, which is apparently fine for KBS's public image. It's just that when you compare it to Shunyun, wait a second, I know what's going on. It's like those off-brand Legos I keep seeing in South Korea. I guess Kbs홀 only wants the cheap Chinese knockoff. So what do you think? Leave your comments below and subscribe to this channel for more episodes. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.
The show is absolutely beautiful. You know, it was so inspiring. I think I may have found some new ideas for the next Avatar movie.
The Avatar movie? Isn't that about native people resisting brutal oppression? No wonder the CCP considers Shunyun such a threat. 10,000 Falun Gong practitioners assembled outside the Central Appeals Office right next to Zhongnan High, the leadership compound of the Chinese Communist Party.